Okay guys, I am out here with the Metanium DC to do a little bit of casting, see how it casts, and also to show you guys how to work the IDC5 brake system. So I have it set on a JACKALL BPM 6'10" medium, and I have 10-pound mono, and we are going to start out in, let's say, monofilament mode. So what you do is you open up the side plate by clicking this dial to open, and then you flip this switch here, and just like the regular Metanium, you pull the side plate off. And right now it's on Fluorocarbon mode, so I'm going to switch it over to monofilament, which I believe is the So there's Braid Mode and N for nylon or monofilament. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in automatic mode, where it adjusts the braking automatically for you for a wide range of lure weights. So that means you go all the way to the A on this external dial right here. I'm going to set the spool tension pretty loose to just minimize the side-to-side play. And it's pretty windy here today, as you guys can see, so it might be a good time to test out the DC braking in the wind. So I'm not really planning on trying to catch any fish. I'm just gonna get a feel for the casting. So let's start out with a 3/8 ounce jerkbait. Lucky Craft Pointer 78. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna switch between line modes and also the brake strength, and see if there's any kind of difference. Okay, so we're on monofilament mode on automatic. I'll be really shocked if any fish bites this jerkbait with this line being the color it is. Okay, that went a pretty good distance. I wasn't even really trying. I'd say that went about 30 yards. Okay, the retrieve, of course, is smooth. These knobs are a lot more comfortable than I thought they'd be, seeing as they're not asymmetrical. Now the thing with DC braking is this does not eliminate the need for you to stop the spool with your thumb. I think that's a misconception, that you can set it up to go thumb free by tightening up the spool tension, but yeah, it's not automatically going to just stop the spool and do everything for you on the cast. Just wanted to clear that up. You still got to stop it with your thumb, especially if you're running loose spool tension. Some old guy down there, I guess fishing for catfish. Supposedly big bass in this pond. I caught one little one here a couple of weeks ago. I don't see any followers. As you can see on automatic mode, it controls overruns very well. You hardly see any kind of fluffing at all. I'd say that's going close to 40 yards. Okay, this Metanium is definitely a caster, as expected, as all the videos that I've seen on YouTube has shown me. And you guys can hear that DC whine. Hopefully you can. Okay, one more cast in automatic mode. Thumb wasn't quick enough to stop the spool. Got a couple of loops there, but overall with a 3/8 ounce jerkbait, pretty impressed. I would say it's probably at least equaling the Metanium MGL with this jerkbait. Do I have a hit? Nope. Caught some kind of, what the hell is this? So we're gonna switch it from automatic to 4, which means this gives the most amount of brakes for, you know, lures with wind resistance and also really light lures down to 3/16. Okay, I can definitely sense the brakes cutting that distance. So 4 is going to give you the maximum braking within your line mode. And of course we are in the nylon or monofilament line mode right now. Distance is still pretty good. I would say it's about 10 foot short of automatic mode. Now, according to the braking profile, 3 should be the best optimum setting for this lure weight. So we're gonna switch to 3. Didn't really see any kind of big difference there. Let's try overhead cast. Okay, that went to a good 40 yards, maybe almost. Hopefully you guys can see where this is landing. Okay, that was with a slight crosswind. As you can see, the DC brakes really control the spool, but still at the same time give you distance. Oh, forgot to stop it with my thumb. Okay, so let's go down to 2 and see what that does. I have a feeling it's gonna be kind of bad. Okay, as you can see, the spool started to overrun, but kind of sorted itself out in the end. So the 2 setting is for, I believe, lures from 3/8 and up to maybe 3/4 of an ounce. So there's not enough braking, at least with this spool tension setting, to keep the spool from overrunning. But let's try again. All right, that went a pretty good distance there. Okay, I'm definitely getting more distance in this number 2 setting, and it's still pretty controlled. It's not, the spool's not blowing up on me to where I have to watch it or thumb it. Okay, a couple more casts here. Okay, so this Metanium is impressing me so far, but once again, this is in isolation. I don't have any other reel with me. Now, I was going to bring the Scorpion DC out for comparison. I did not have a comparable rod to use, and I'm going to make a separate video just for the Scorpion DC, because that seems to be the more popular DC reel right now. Damn, now I know that went about 45 yards. Gotta reel all this damn line in now. Okay, so that had a little bit of wind behind it, granted, but the number 2 setting definitely has less braking than 3. There's no doubt about it. In fact, I'm going to switch to 3 right now, do the same cast. Yeah, that was a good 10 yards short of the previous cast that was on 2. Let me show you guys one more time. Okay, so the dial is on 3 right now. Now remember where that landed. And we're gonna cast it on 2. Switching to 2. Damn, okay. 2 is definitely farther casting. Okay, so against my better judgment, just to show you guys, I'm going to switch it to 1, which is meant for ultra heavy, super aerodynamic lures that fly really far. It gives you the minimum amount of braking. So this might be bad, but I'm going to show you anyway. Oh crap. Yep, that was bad. Hopefully I can pick this out, or the video might be over. Okay, finally picked out that backlash. Okay, so I'm going to try to cast one more time with the dial on 1, but I'm not going to try to cast that hard, just to see what the spool does. Yeah, that's a no-go. So definitely number 1 on any of the line settings is for those heavy, super aerodynamic lures that will fly far, like spoons, and I don't even think a lipless crankbait, unless it was super heavy, would be able to tame that spool. So we're gonna go back to 2 and see what happens. Much better. much better. Okay, so we've determined that for this lure, Lucky Craft Pointer 78, which is right at 3/8 or a little bit more, 2 is the lowest you can go on nylon mode or mono mode. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch it over to fluorocarbon mode. See how that casts. So once again, I flip the dial to open this latch. Okay, so nylon, braid. Okay, fluorocarbon mode. Now fluorocarbon, of course, is the most the stiffest, least manageable line out there, so I expect that the brakes will be turned up pretty good. So we're going to go to fluorocarbon in automatic. Okay, that's not bad. Now if you're wondering why I'm in fluorocarbon mode when I have nylon or monofilament on, you don't have to pick the mode or pick the mode that whatever line you have on the reel. You can do what you want, and I recommend that you experiment to see what's going to give you the best casting for your style of fishing. So it's definitely a doable distance all around. Do an overhead cast. Not bad, but I think nylon or mono mode was a little bit farther. Now I would definitely recommend fluoro for really heavy fluoro, like maybe 12 pounds and up. So there's a slight wind coming in towards me there, and I handled it very well. I don't even see any fish here. Allegedly, they have big fish in here. I'm starting to doubt that. Okay, let's go down to 4, which should be technically the most restrictive brakes. Yeah, you can see that's probably went only about 25 yards, if that. Yep, no matter how hard I throw, it's going about the same distance. Let's try overhead cast now. Even with the overhead, it's going about the same distance. So you can see the very strong, aggressive braking profile of the fluorocarbon mode. Okay, we're going to go down to 3. Okay, that went a little bit farther, and the spool was still very controlled. Yep, same distance. Alrighty, let's go to 2, which was the lowest we could go in the monofilament or nylon mode. Okay, so that's not bad. It went a little bit further. There's a lot more wind than I thought. It's taking this lure off to the left. Okay, there's a wind coming in. Let's see how it does. That's impressive. DC brakes, no doubt, are the best for windy conditions, bar none. Okay, so this little backlash is my fault. I wasn't looking at the lure, I was looking at the spool. You can see the brakes taming all those little fluff ups that happened during that cast. So fluorocarbon mode, while it is the most restrictive braking, it will still give you plenty of distance. Now keep in mind, guys, this is with a pretty loose spool tension, just to minimize the side-to-side play. Okay, we're gonna go to number 1 in fluorocarbon mode, see if we can actually make a cast. Here we go. Okay, so I thumbed that from the beginning to the end because I was scared of the spool blowing up, but I got good distance and I barely even tried to cast that out there. So let's put more effort into it now. Okay, I have a feeling if I just reared back and tried to launch it out there, this spool would blow up. So definitely, once again, the number 1 setting is probably not going to be doable for a lure of this weight. We are now going to go to the braid mode. Okay, we're in braid mode now, or PE. Gonna start off in automatic, or A. Now there's I wouldn't say it's a controversy, but there's kind of confusion as to which line mode gives you the longest casting. I say it's braid mode from my experiences with the Scorpion DC. Some people may say nylon, but we're gonna have to wait and get out on the casting field to truly see which line mode gives you the longest casting. That's gonna be another video. Okay, decent distance, probably about 30 yards. Spool, as you can see, extremely controlled. Let's do an overhead. Crap, that wind. It's all around mode, gives you pretty good distance. So we're gonna go down to 4, which should be the strongest braking. Okay, that's still pretty good, even though it's supposedly the strongest braking. So I'm thinking braid mode does give you the least braking, therefore technically the potential for the longest casts. Crap. That was going farther than Fluoro mode in 2. Okay. Let's go down to 3. Okay, not much of a difference in distance there. Spool still really controlled. Let's try one more. Okay, let's go to 2. I'm gonna check out the spool, see how it behaves. Okay, I shouldn't have tried to cast so hard, but luckily this backlash wasn't that deep. So the DC whine is not as loud as I've heard reports of, but then again, I don't have the other DC reels with me to compare. But I will soon enough on the casting field. Okay, I think we've established now that braid mode is definitely the least restrictive braking profile, because I was easily able to do 2 on the dial with nylon and fluoro. Well, in braid mode, it's a problem. So I'm not even going to attempt to, well, I am going to attempt it just to show you guys, to go to 1 on the braid mode. Okay, one more cast on setting 2. I just barely lobbed that out there just so the spool wouldn't gain so much speed. So if you're a lazy caster where you don't really like to put a lot of energy into your casts, this would definitely work for you, but you definitely got to watch that spool. Okay, with the wind, I'm going to see if I can get a long cast overhead. Okay, I was able to manage that, a good clean cast. Okay, one more time. Okay, so I'm not sure if that's going any farther than it was on nylon mode. Just visually, I can't really tell. It looked to be about the same. But that's why I do the field testing, so I can get a solid measured number. Okay, wow. I was barely even trying, and that thing went probably close to 40 yards sidearm cast. Okay guys, I'm gonna go to 1 on braid mode. Let's cross our fingers that this will not blow up so bad that I can't pick it out. Whoa. Yeah, that is definitely not doable at all. Okay guys, so I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna see if I brought any lures of different weights. So we're gonna test out the automatic mode in nylon to see if the automatic mode will actually adjust itself to different lure weights. So let me see if I brought anything that's lighter and heavier than these. Okay guys, I found 3 lures that are all different weights. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch this to nylon or monofilament mode. And leave it in automatic. And see if the automatic can handle the different lure weights. So I have a Duo Realis. This is supposed to be less, around 1/4 of an ounce, maybe a little less. I know I've casted this with other bait casters and it's tough. It doesn't fly that far and it's pretty light. So let's see what the Metanium DC can do. I don't know if it's going to load up this rod. As you can see, it's not even putting a bend in this rod. But let's see what happens. Okay, so that went about 20 yards, maybe a little bit more. So this thing can definitely cast light lures. As you can see, the spool is controllable. Okay, wow, that went a long way. So I'm gonna have to weigh these when I get home. Okay, here's a headwind coming in. Let's see if it can handle this wind with this light lure. Oh, not so much. So I'm thinking automatic mode is probably like a 2.5 on the external dial if there was such a setting. Between 2 and 3. But of course, this is a digital circuit, so it very well could be adjusting automatically. Okay. Okay, so that was the Duo Realis. I think this is an 80. Now we already did the 3/8 of an ounce, so really don't need to go back to that. But the only really heavy lure I saw in the trunk of my car was this Lunker Hunt Combat Frog, which is, I believe, 3/4 of an ounce. Yeah, it's almost too much for this rod, but let's see what this thing will do. Man, that thing went out. I was barely even trying. You think I'll get a frog bite out there? Doubt it. Crap. Okay, I'll tell you this much. If you have braid on this thing, this DC wheel will launch a frog a damn mile. I'm just barely sidearm lobbing it because I don't want to break my rod, and this thing is just launching. I wonder if there's water built up in here. Okay, there was definitely water that got in to that hole. Okay. As you can see, going from a 1/4 ounce to 3/4 of an ounce without touching anything was no problem, or I should say is no problem for the Metanium DC. And still get distance. That's the key, is the distance. You can turn your brakes up and cast a light lure and then switch up to a heavy lure with any reel, but you're not going to get the distance. See, with this, you'll get distance with all of the lures, from light all the way to heavy in the automatic mode. You don't have to worry about backlash. Well, I should say overrun at all. Just have to worry about stopping the spool with your thumb when it hits. As you can see, there's not even a hint of overrun that the DC is not taken care of. So guys, this is exactly why DC reels in general cost so much more than a regular reel. The technology actually works. Okay, so we're going to go back to that light lure and see what happens. Okay, still on automatic mode. No issues at all. Getting really good distance for such a light lure. And spool control is perfect. Okay guys, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn it on 4, which should be the prime setting for this lure here. I'm going to try to cast into the wind. So that's a good thing to remember there, is if the wind kicked up suddenly, doesn't matter what mode you have or what lure you have tied on, you can kick it up to 3 or 4, one of the heavier brake settings, and it'll handle it. Now, only if they would make a 50 size DC in a low profile, then I would have to get at least 2 of them. Or bring back another DC bait finesse. I would have to get at least 2 of those too. If I don't run out of internal organs to sell, of course. Alright guys, hope that helps you out with the Metanium DC and IDC5 settings and how to work it. I'm going to go home and I'm going to weigh these lures just to see what the weight is of these lures we were throwing and give you my final thoughts. Okay guys, so we are back from the water and casting around the mighty Metanium DC. And there's quite a bit to talk about, so let's dive right into it. Now, the main thing I want to talk about is the IDC5 system. Now, I hope this helps anyone who has a Scorpion DC or Metanium DC, or anyone who is looking to get one of these reels that has Shimano's IDC5 system, but you're kind of intimidated by all the different line settings and external dial adjustments, etc., etc. And like I said, I hope this helps you guys out as to show you how to operate the IDC5 system. It's not hard at all. It's actually pretty much set and forget reel most of the time, as you can see. Okay, so let's talk about IDC5. Now the I in IDC5 stands for intelligent. So basically Shimano says that this system learns and adjusts itself to your casting style. Now, I'll have to admit I was pretty skeptical about that claim, but as you can see, when I went to the Braid mode or PE mode and set the external dial all the way to 2, which gives the second least amount of braking, the first cast with the Lucky Craft pointer, I pretty much blew the spool up immediately, and yeah. So ironically, on the second and third casts, the braking system adjusted itself, so I was able to actually get some pretty decently clean casts with some really long distances with that same lure, and I touched nothing. I didn't adjust spool tension, I didn't do anything with the external dial, I just left it as is. So it looks to me like that system adapted and adjusted to my casting style and allowed me to cast the lure from then on out with such a low brake setting. So definitely the intelligent part of IDC5 definitely works. Just another testament to the dominance of Shimano's technology. Okay, so let's talk about the automatic mode. Of course, automatic mode refers to the external dial being set to A. According to Shimano, the automatic mode will self-adjust to any lure all the way from, I believe, 1/4 ounce all the way to over 1 ounce. And you don't have to do any kind of fiddling or messing around. Pretty much a set and forget kind of mode. And I was kind of skeptical about that as well. But as you can see, when I went from that super lightweight jerkbait to that heavy frog and really basically touched nothing, and the DC just casted them with no problem, no overruns, no backlashes. The automatic mode is definitely legit. Set and forget. Speaking of which, let's bring out the lures that I was using and we will see how much they weighed. Okay guys, so I brought out 3 lures that I was using for casting tests, and let's see how much they weigh. So the main lure I was using was this Lucky Craft Pointer 78 that's supposed to weigh 3/8 of an ounce or around 10 grams. Okay, so it's actually under 3/8 of an ounce by a little bit at 9.5 grams. As you can see, it was absolutely launching this fairly lightweight lure with no problem at all, and some pretty long distances as well. Now the most impressive thing was this lure here. Now this is supposed to be either 1/4 ounce or a little bit under, according to Tackle Warehouse. Okay, wow, as you can see, this weighs 4.6 grams. So this is under 3/16 of an ounce. And as you can see by the footage, the DC was casting this lure a really good distance for being a non-finesse bait caster. And what made it even more impressive was that this lure was not even loading up that JACKALL rod. So that casting performance of this lure was all real. Okay, so the last lure I was using was this Lunker Hunt Combat Frog, which I believe is supposed to be 3/4 of an ounce. Yeah, so it's pretty much right at almost 21 grams, so at 3/4 of an ounce. So this shows you that the automatic mode is truly a set and forget, because I went from this sub 3/16 ounce lure to this 3/4 ounce frog without changing a thing. I didn't adjust the spool tension, I didn't do anything. I just stuck it in automatic mode, and as you can see, the DC system compensated and it launched these lures a long way with truly excellent spool control. And once again, the light lure capability of the IDC5 and Metanium DC is legit. And I'm not calling it a bait finesse reel, but it can definitely handle those lighter lures, probably down to an 1/8 with no problem, and do it respectably as well. And it leads me to the spool control. Now, as you can see, most of my casts were very controlled. You saw very few overruns in the middle of the cast, very little fluffing. And the great thing about the DC technology is that you get the best spool control, but it doesn't cost you distance like it does with other braking systems. So, spool control without losing distance. So once again, DC technology rules all. Okay, so let's talk about the different line modes and the choices. Now, as you can see, I was using 10-pound monofilament, but I was switching around from different modes like fluoro and braid. Now that lets you know that you do not need to use the internal line setting for whatever line you're using. You can switch it up and do whatever you want. Whatever is going to suit your style of fishing and casting the best is what I recommend. So if you're using monofilament and you want less braking, then definitely go to braid. Or if you want more braking because the wind's kicked up, or if you want to skip, then you can definitely go to fluorocarbon. That gives you the most braking. Now that leads us right into which line mode casts the farthest, braid or monofilament. In my previous testing of the Scorpion DC, which has pretty much the same brake system, I found that the braid mode seemed to cast farthest as far as pure distance. And as we can see by this video, that the braid mode actually gives us less braking than monofilament mode. But I'm going to go ahead and go out on the field and do some extensive testing and do some measurements to see which truly gives us the longest casting distance, braid or monofilament mode, because the least amount of braking doesn't necessarily mean the longest cast. So yeah, I mean, this thing is pretty much, I'm gonna say, if not the best or the top, it's definitely up there in the top 3 all around best bait casters that I've used. And that's saying something, because I have quite a bit of reels from different companies and whatnot. So, but it's not all roses. Of course, there's no reel that's perfect. Now, the only thing that I would change about this reel is the line mode adjustment. Basically meaning switching from line mode to line mode. From, let's say, if you want to go from nylon all the way to braid, or nylon all the way to fluorocarbon, you have to open the reel up to do that. Now, if Shimano in their next generation of DC reels can put that adjustment on the outside, maybe back here somewhere, or up here, or somewhere on the bottom, to where we don't have to open this up to switch that, and then this thing would be perfect. It's not too heavy, palm's great, just like a regular Metanium. It's long and low, and as you can see, it casts freaking amazing. So yeah, there we go guys, the Metanium DC. I wasn't really sure I wanted to buy this reel when it first came out, because I wasn't really too impressed with the specs Shimano gave out, but I'm really glad I did, and I plan on putting it up against the Metanium MGL on the field, and then of course getting to the DC battles, where it's going to go up against the ANTARES DC, and of course its younger brother, the Scorpion DC. And I also plan to go out on the water and do the same thing with the Scorpion DC, show you how to use its braking system, because I've seen that lately a lot of people have purchased the Scorpion DC, and with good reason, because it is the most affordable DC reel out there. All right guys, thanks a lot.